Oh, is the interview? No, it hasn't started. I don't think. Is this a new one? Moments ago.
And Google's being sued, Facebook's being sued, and many others are being sued by their so-called government, if you call it a government, EU. They don't treat us right. They don't treat us right as a country. So we're going to protect our companies. We have to protect our companies. So we're not going to have any companies left anymore. I also want to thank Apple, though, for announcing they're going to invest $500 billion in our country. That's the biggest investment anybody's probably made to this date.
That's a lot of money.
Do it very quickly, and that's because of tariffs.
Shout out to 10
Apple. They
Apple.
want to pay the tariffs, and they feel very strongly about the country now. They wouldn't have done it without us. Without the Trump administration, they wouldn't have done it. But they feel very strongly about the direction of the country. The polls have shown that too. The polls are coming out showing direction of the company is of the country is the best they've ever seen. Actually, best they've ever seen. So I just want to thank Tim Cook and Apple for the confidence. $500 billion. That's the biggest investment anyone has made in a short period of time.
Okay.
Mr. President, can you clarify, hopefully once and for all, what your expectations are with this email to federal employees? What are you going to use that information for? And do you see it as voluntary, like OPM has said, or mandatory?
Yeah, well, it's somewhat voluntary, but it's also, if you don't answer, I guess you get fired. What it really is, what it is do people exist? We have this massive government with millions of people, and nobody knows who's working for the government, who's not. So what they're doing is they're sending out a letter to everybody, and they're saying, what were the things you did last week? I guess they ask for 5. And if people are working, it's easy. I could tell you 5 things I did last week. I could tell you 5 things I did 6 weeks ago, right? If they're there and they're working, they're able to say they did 5 things during work.
That'd be easy to say,
They're working and they're with us and they have no further obligation. Sure. If they're not, it could be there's no such person. It could be that the person's no longer working. They're no longer living at that address. They may be moved. Maybe they moved to a different country, or maybe the person doesn't exist. And we then take that person off the payroll, and we save a lot of money by
doing that. That's the office space.
But that's one of the only ways. I think
just fix the glitch.
And it says, if you don't answer, essentially, there's a penalty to pay. Like that's the end of the job.
Smart.
Musk has said that. The order itself doesn't say that. I think that's part of the confusion. Is he speaking for you when he says?
Yeah. Everybody speaks for me. I'm the one. I'll take responsibility. You know the old statement, the buck stops here, right? Famous statement. Well, I can say the same thing. The buck stops here. No, we have to find out if people are getting paid and they're not working, and they have a problem. Let's say they have another job. And then
he is the president, right?
It's a big problem if they're working for somebody else but getting paid by the U.S. government, and that would mean that they're not allowed to be doing that. They're not allowed to be working for us and be working for somebody else. We're paying them a lot of money. We're paying them. So we'll see. That solves that problem. Most people aren't willing to say that, we're doing this, and this, and this for the U.S. government, and yet they're at another job, because that's a big problem for them if they do that. So in some cases, they're not writing back. And if they don't write
10
back,
people doing one person's job.
they end up eventually
and it's not getting
done. We give them extensions, but that was something we thought about a long time ago. We give them extensions, but we'll see.
Zelensky's coming on Friday to meet with you, and is the mineral deal sorted out?
Yeah, I hear that. I hear that he's coming on Friday. Certainly, it's okay with me if he'd like to, and he would like to sign it together with me, and I understand that's a big deal, very big deal. And I think the American people, even if you look at polling, they're very happy because, Biden was throwing money around like it's cotton candy. And it's a very big deal. It could be $1 trillion deal. It could be whatever, but it's rare earths and other things. And look, we're spending hundreds of billions of dollars on Ukraine and Russia fighting. A war that should have never, ever happened. That's a war that would have never happened if I were president. And it didn't happen for 4 years. People say, how do we know that? It didn't happen for 4 years. Would have never happened. And never I went into this situation, and he spent money like nobody's ever seen. $350 billion. The other thing that we don't like is that Europe has spent $100 billion. We've spent $350 billion.
That's a lot.
Europe gets their money back because they spent it in the form of a loan.
I've heard this before.
And we just gave them, whether it's 300 or 350 billion, nobody really knows. They can't even tell me the answer to that, but it means probably more than that. So what we're doing is now we're saying,
Bingo
look,
card.
we want to be secured. We want to get that money back. We're helping a country through a very, very big problem, a problem like
Macron corrected them yesterday. They
shouldn't
did.
have had this problem because it shouldn't have happened, but it did happen. So we have to straighten it out. But the American
he's not here
taxpayer
today.
now is going to get their money back plus.
With Ukraine and this mineral deal, what does Ukraine get in return, Mr. President?
$350 billion.
I just said it.
Lots of equipment, and military equipment, and the right to fight on, and originally the right to fight. Look, Ukraine, I will say, they're very brave and they're good soldiers, but without the United States and its money and its military equipment, this war would have been over in a very short period of time. In fact, I was the one that gave the javelins. You remember the javelins? That was me. That wasn't Obama. It wasn't Biden. It wasn't anybody else. It was me. And they wiped out a lot of tanks with those javelins. And the expression was that...
Are those like laws or something?
Obama gave sheets and I gave the javelins. That was a big deal at the time. It wiped out. That was the beginning when people said, wow, that's something.
Yeah?
Well,
Okay.
that was American equipment. Without American equipment, this war would have been over very quickly. And American money, too.
Carolyn Levitt, your press secretary, sent an earthquake through that briefing room earlier today announcing that the WHCA would not have any control over placing media in the seats, the briefing room. Just want to get your thoughts on that. And also on Air Force One.
Well, we're going to be now calling those shots. As you know, we won that lawsuit right there. See the Gulf of America, which is a beautiful name. Most people agree. I don't know. It's, you know, AP has been terrible. Look, I think they're radical left. I think they're third-rate reporters. I know the specific young lady that works on the account is terrible. She's a radical left lunatic, as far as I'm concerned. They don't treat us fairly.
Man.
That's number one. And number two, they had no right to do that. This is
He's still
the Gulf
got it
of
up,
America.
right?
And if you look at that shoreline, look at that shoreline. Look, from Florida, well, most of it is, it's called America. And vast majority, like big numbers. So I'm just admiring it as I look at it. I'm getting teary-eyed, but I don't want you to say Trump broke down and started crying. No, how beautiful is that? Look at the shoreline. Look at that. That's America.
Uh-oh,
You know,
here we go.
Little skirmish in California. I can't believe we had to do that, but we opened up the water in California. The water was flowing into a place called the Pacific Ocean.
I've heard of
which
that.
for the Pacific Ocean is only a drop, but for us, it's more water than we can use in California. So I'll get you some photographs, but it's a beautiful sight. The water is flowing in California. Beautiful water from the Pacific
Delta
Northwest and beyond. And it flows down, and instead of being routed out to the Pacific Ocean, and this has been going on for 20 years more, in order to take care of a certain species of fish, which wasn't doing very well without water. So that's a big deal. It's like not reported. It's incredible. But California has a lot of water. That's going to take care of farmers. It's going to wetten up the land, and it's going to go all the way down to Los Angeles, where they have curfews on water, where they have all sorts of blocks on water. You can only so much. We're going to put until just recently, they were going to put a number of gallons per person living in a house in Beverly Hills.
Oh man, this is amazing.
You're not going to have that problem anymore. Do you have a picture? Let me just see what
this is
that
really
looks
something
like.
special, boys.
How beautiful is that? Look at that beautiful water flowing. Look at that. That's
Oh
going
wow!
in the dikes and other means of transportation. Isn't that beautiful? Who would believe that? That's all water they could have had. I went to
Wait,
the
they got him a printout of his own
first term, and I said, "Why don't you do this?" And they said environmental. They have an environmental problem with clean water. If this water were there, you wouldn't have had those fires.
Mr. President, may I ask you a question about Europe? So long term, do you plan to maintain the number of U.S. troops?
Wait, I just want to savor this one, please. Who would like this pen?
I'll take it.
Hey, why don't you send it to Jack Smith? A deranged person.
would you provide military support for Ukraine in the future as part
You mean
of
like
this
security?
agreement? Yeah.
Well, people are going to do it. I think Europe will largely be responsible for that.
But
European countries will be responsible.
But Macron
Non-answer.
asked for a U.S. backup.
Well, we'll see. I mean, right now we're just in the process of negotiating. We've pretty much negotiated our deal on raw earth and various other things. We'll be looking at that security. You're talking about general security for Ukraine later on. I don't think that's going to be a problem. There are a lot of people that want to do it. And I spoke with Russia about it. They didn't seem to have a problem with it. So I think they understand. They're not going back in.
Mr. President, when you spoke to Vladimir Putin, did he raise or did you discuss at all the possibility of a minerals deal on the Ukrainian land that Russia now controls?
I didn't discuss it, no. I'd like to buy minerals on Russian land, too, if we can.
We're going to buy
The rare
Russia?
earth. They have very good rare earth also. They both do, I would say that. And oil and gas. Look, it's a great thing. If we sell this, it's great for Russia, too. Because we can do deals there. They have very valuable land. So something like that could take place, yeah.
On that gold card, getting back to that, I'm fascinated by this, Mr. President.
You should be fascinated by it. Your taxes will go down to nothing.
Would a Russian oligarch be eligible for a gold card?
Yeah, possibly. Hey, I know some Russian oligarchs that are very nice people. It's possible. They're not quite as wealthy as they used to be. They're not as wealthy as they used to be. I think they can afford. I think they can afford $5 million. So no, a lot of people are going to want to. A lot of people are going to want to be in this country, and they'll be able to work and provide jobs and build companies.
He's trolling. Yeah, he doesn't even give a fuck.
All of those things. It's an incredible.
Wow. So we have a new gold card. Russian oligarchs can get it. There are a lot of nice Russian oligarchs. Trump is selling hats that say that he was right about everything. And the Gulf of America. Oh, and apparently fish don't do so well when they don't have water.
And their distractions. We can't let them deport the millions of families across this country who have been doing the work that keeps our economy going every day. We can't let them scapegoat and criminalize immigrants who contribute, who are...
See, you see how they like to do this, where like they try to conflate illegal immigration with legal immigration? This is always what they do, and this is why you have those that terminology. And like, so for anybody who thinks that, oh, well, like the Gulf of America and like this terminology doesn't matter, I want you to see the way that these people use it and how the persuasion, like the persuasion techniques that certain types of language use.
Who are our neighbors, our friends, our churchgoers, our community around us that we deeply love. Immigrants are us. Immigrants are us, and we all
like
deserve respect and dignity. If you look at the food that's on your table, think about who picked it. If you look at your homes and their distractions, we can't...
Man, that's right. Immigrants are us. Is it a new store? That's crazy. She's advocating for illegal immigration? Yeah, well, you see how, like, she makes no effort to separate the difference between the two things, right? Like, there's never an effort made to draw a distinction between illegal aliens versus legal immigrants. And that's the problem. Figure out to keep... Yeah, I'm a legal migrant, but it's hard to be... But it's hard... It is hard, but it's legal. Yeah, well, that's what happens, right? I mean, the U.S. doesn't owe anybody a citizenship. They don't owe that to anybody. That's crazy.